Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the Georgia Sports Craze. We're gonna do this from the man cave here in Dallas, Georgia. Gonna start recording a little YouTube video every now and then. We're gonna read some entries from my blog. We'll have some discussions about sports, talk about some issues that are going on, anything that's getting some national interest or local interest in sports, everything from high school to pro. Might have some folks come on with me from time to time and have a debate or discussion. It's going to be something fun. We're just going to do it. It's going to be kind of very loose and enjoyable. No special format to this. So if you've got something you want to see or talk about or hear about, feel free to email me or tweet me, and we'll definitely get it on for you. Here's how you can get a hold of me. At Twitter, I am at the @ symbol GA Sports Craze, Craze. That's at GA Sports Craze. The blog address is linked on my Twitter, but if you just want to go right to the blog, it's gasportscraze11.blogspot.com. That's gasportscraze11.blogspot.com. And the entry that we're going to discuss on the blog today, well, you guessed it, it's the Braves. Oh boy, was that ugly. Or as I like to call it, Bravocolypse. Yeah, they had a meltdown. It was pretty bad. But it wasn't as bad as it might seem. So let's talk about that piece. It's called Bravocolypse 2011. It's on my blog, and we're going to discuss it now. So the other night, Braves fans, they saw the holy of unholies. The Atlanta Braves, who had been up 9 games in the wild card lead and hadn't been out of that lead since late June, dropped their final game of the 2011 season only to be left out of postseason play. Well, that sounds terrible, right? I'll say maybe. Let's just break it down. This was a team that was supposed to go, well, nobody was really sure. It was the first time in decades that Bobby Cox was not at the helm in the dugout or sitting on high in the front office. First-year manager Freddie Gonzalez and pretty much a whole new coaching staff were taking over. Chipper Jones was coming back yet off another catastrophic injury and surgery, and it was a young and fairly unknown and untested pitching staff, both starters and the bullpen. You had a rookie starting at first base. You had a rookie stepping into the closer's role. It doesn't really sound like a recipe for a trip to the World Series, does it? More like a recipe for the Major League Baseball version of Kraft macaroni and cheese. Inexpensive, familiar, but it gets the job done. The fans in Atlanta that I spoke to were braced for the worst this season. Expectations for the first time in 20 years were pretty low, and rightfully so. This was not the Braves of the 90s. There was no real high-priced talent. No huge free agent acquisitions, just some good young talent from the farm system, a handful of hired hands, and an aging Chipper Jones. Well, there was that Dan Uggla. He was going to be some pop in the middle of that lineup. He'd be good for 25 or more home runs and at least 80 or more RBIs, right? Yeah, about that. We'll get back to that later. So the season began, and as it progressed through the summer, something amazing started to happen. These Braves gelled. They were the consummate team. They fed off each other, and when someone was down, like Dan Uggla was pretty much the entire first half of the season, the other guys picked him up. The pitching staff was brilliant. Jair Jurgens was having his coming out party. He was pitching up a storm, even outdoing his old ace teammate Tim Hudson. And Tommy Hanson was finally starting to look like the pitcher the Braves had hoped he'd be. The other starters were doing their part as well. The bullpen was phenom. O'Flaherty, Venners, and Kimbrell were quickly becoming the most feared 1-2-3 punch in the league. And by the time the All-Star break rolled around, the Braves were sending 5 players to the Midsummer Classic, including Brian McCann making his first ever All-Star start, and were sitting 9 games up in the wild card lead. Not bad from where I was sitting. You had to be optimistic if you were a Braves fan. After all, this was the Braves, one of the best second-half teams in the majors every year. Taking the division crown away from Philadelphia didn't even seem out of reach in July. And then it happened. Injuries to Jones, McCann, Jurgens, Hanson, Hayward, Prado, yada, yada, yada. The list went on. Even Hawkeye Pierce would have broken a beat of sweat or two at the sight of this frontline injury report. And with those injuries came the ugly truth. The Braves, although they had heart, weren't very deep. With the injuries to so many key players, they were exposed. The lack of serious bench depth, coupled with Liberty Media's strict budget guidelines, had left the Braves twisting in the wind. By September, it was apparent these guys were going to struggle, and struggle mightily they did. On September 1st, the Braves held an 8.5 game lead in the wild card standings over St. Louis, but the cracks in the armor were pretty evident. The pitching was starting to struggle, the bullpen was being overworked, and in the words of Crash Davis, we couldn't hit water if we fell out of a friggin' boat. The month of September was beyond ugly, and it was beyond cruel. It was like watching a dying spider trying to make its way up the edge of a toilet bowl. You just wanted to flush it and be done with it. The Braves went 8-18 in the month of September. It was abysmal. In the final game of the season, which if the Braves had won, they could have prolonged the inevitable end for at least one more day, was a mere microcosm of the season. So close, yet so utterly mediocre. Dumb base running plays, a once untouchable bullpen being scorched, and even the relatively feared big sticks in the lineup were coming up short in the clutch. All of this leading to a 13-inning, 4-3 defeat at the hands of the Phillies. The Cardinals were in, the Braves were out. And Atlantans acted surprisingly stunned. Don't be stunned, folks. Don't even be mildly jolted. Freddie Gonzalez got more out of this team than I think anyone expected, but that fact is forgotten when you partake in such a monumental collapse. The sad part is that we'll probably see a lot more seasons like this in Atlanta. Well, as long as Liberty Media, one of the last corporate owners in Major League Baseball, is calling the shots. The purse strings are tight, folks, and so are the chances of getting some megastars to bolster that lineup and to give some depth to the starting rotation. Over the next few weeks, there's bound to be a lot of finger pointing going on in Atlanta. Gonzalez, injuries, coaching, player attitude, you name it. And all of these things are valid points. But to me, ownership needs to take the brunt of the blame. Play or sell, boys. Play or sell. Don't keep this city in financial shackles. Ask Ted Turner. He'll tell you how it's done. That's it. I'm Michael Collins from the Georgia Sports Craze. Have a good day.